Hi, the next paradigm we are going to discuss is dependent type programming paradigm. What is the most difficult part in writing a computer program? The most difficult part is to write a correct computer program, and proving that the program is correct is even more harder. There comes this programming paradigm, dependent type. It allows us to write program and know that they are correct even before executing them. That is, the checking is done at compile time itself. So what we use here are what we call as logical quantifiers like for all and there exist. The advantage of dependent type is it helps reduces bugs. Let us see at some examples of dependent type programming. One example is a factorial function which accepts only natural numbers. Another example is a login function which doesn't accept empty strings. And all this has to be checked before you run the program itself. That is, before execution of the program, during compile time itself, if you are able to check all these things, then there comes dependent type programming paradigm. A function has dependent type if the type of the function results depends on the value of its argument. Based on the argument value, okay, if the function's result depend, then it is called as dependent type. It is a little bit different from the parameterized type. So let us discuss about what a type is. The keyword type has various meaning in different contexts. In programming, types are just used for classifying values. For example, we have character, we have integer, we have float, we have double. So these are data types and they're just used to classify the various values in a program. For a machine, data type describes how bit patterns in memory are to be interpreted. That is, how a character should be interpreted in memory using 1 byte, how an integer should be interpreted using 2 bytes. Right? And when we still further go into the meaning of a type, for a compiler or interpreter, data type ensures that bit patterns are interpreted consistently throughout the program. Wherever a data type integer is used and a variable has been declared of type integer, okay, it ensures that the bit patterns are interpreted consistently throughout the program. And finally, in terms of a programmer, a data type will help them to name variables, aid for documentation, and also for supporting interactive additive environments. Right. Let us discuss about two different types of logics here. One is the propositional logic and the other one is predicate logic. What is propositional logic? These are nothing but facts which are either true or false. For example, some humans are intelligent. It is a fact. Humans are intelligent. Some humans are intelligent. Some humans are also not intelligent. It is a fact. It can be either true or false. Similarly, Sachin likes cricket, which is true. But these facts are not sufficient to represent complex logic. Very simply saying, propositional logic has very limited expressive power. If you want to express complex logic, you should go for the next type of logic called as a predicate logic, which is an extension to the propositional logic. The other name of predicate logic is first order logic. Okay. So in addition to facts, predicate logic or first order logic has objects, relations, and functions. An object can be anything that is in the real world. It can be an object, it can be a person, it can be anything. That is what an object is. People, number, colors, anything can be an object here. And relations can be unary relation or n-ary relation. That is the relation between facts and objects. They can be unary, binary, ternary, or it can be an n-ary relation. And functions of objects. The third one is the functions that can act on objects or functions that are available for objects. So predicate logic has facts along with objects, relations, and functions. Let us take a look into the details of predicate logic. What are the various symbols that can be part of a predicate logic? So the basic syntactic elements of first order or predicate logic are symbols. Any language basically starts with symbols, right? So we have constants, which can be anything, a number, a character, a string. It can be anything, can be called as a constant. We know what variables are. Then what we have are called as predicates. We'll see what predicates are as we go further. Then we have functions that act on predicates. So predicates can be called also as an object. Then we have connectives, and, are, not, implies, all these are connectives. Then we have equality, which is double equal to. Then we have quantifiers. The first one is the universal quantifier, and the other one is the existential quantifier. There are two symbols here, an inverted A and an inverted E. Inverted A is the universal quantifier and inverted E is the existential quantifier. So we have seen about the basic syntactic elements of predicate logic. Next, we need to see about atomic sentences. Atomic means, okay, very basic sentences. Very basic sentences of predicate logic. The syntax is predicate, which is the keyword, and within parentheses, the various terms available. And what can be in these terms? Terms can be objects. So for example, let us take a fact here. Ravi and Ajay are brothers. How do we represent it? By means of an atomic sentence. Brothers. Brother is a predicate here. So brothers of Ravi, Ajay. Suppose if Ravi, Ajay and Kunal are brothers. So brothers of Ravi, Ajay, Kunal. Similarly, Chinky is a cat. So cat of Chinky. So here brothers and cat are predicates and Ravi, Ajay, Chinky are objects, or you can simply call them as terms of an atomic sentence. Right. The next sentence is the complex sentences. These are made by combining atomic sentences using connectives. So when we use the term combine, we have to use connectives. So what are the connectives that can be used? We can use AND connective, we can use OR connective, you can use NOT connective. These are some of the connectives which we can actually use. So complex sentences are divided into two parts. One is the subject and the other one is the predicate. For example, X is an integer where X is the subject and is an integer is the predicate. So simply speaking, subject is the main part of the statement and a predicate can be defined as a relation. If you want to bind two atoms together, you have to use a predicate. That is the basic rule. So here X is an integer where X is the subject and is an integer is the predicate. Next one, quantifiers. Already I mentioned to you about what a quantifier is. A language element which generates quantification is called as a quantifier. So what is the example that can be given here? Let us consider a class of 60 students. If I am saying that all the students must take up the test, that is quantification. All is the quantification here. Suppose if I say that register numbers 1 to 30 can take up the test and the remaining can take up an assignment. Okay, here 1 to 30, that is the first part is a quantification and remaining is another quantification. So simply speaking, quantification specifies the quantity of specimen in the given universe. Here the universe is the class. The universe of disclosure is the class. Discourse is the class. So how many specimens you need to quantify? That is what a quantification is. And more technically speaking, these are the symbols that permit to determine or identify the range and scope of the variable in the expression. So what can be the scope of the variable? What can be the range of the variable in an expression? That has to be determined by means of a quantifier. There are two types of quantifiers. One is universal quantifier, for all, everyone, everything. Okay, if you are about to include everything as part of your logic, then that comes under universal quantifier. Existential quantifier, for some, at least one, or at least these are existential quantifiers. Again going for a recap of what a quantifier is. Quantification specifies the quantity of specimen in the universe of discourse. I gave you a very clear example of a class. In that example, the class is the universe of discourse, which contains all 60 students. And quantification specifies the number of students who are going to take up the test. This is one example, a simple example I have given here. This quantification can be applied for any real world fact, for any complex sentence. Right. Let us look at an universal quantifier, how it can be represented, and let us also go for a particular predicate which helps us to tell us what an universal quantifier is. Universal quantifier specifies that the statement within its range is true for everything or every instance. Simply speaking, for all, for each, for every, all these are universal quantifiers. That is, the statement within its range is true for everything. That is an universal quantifier. It is represented by a inverted A. It is represented by a symbol, an inverted A, or you can call it as a universal quantifier. You can call it either way. And we always use an implication symbol, which is a arrow pointing to the right. Okay. If X is a variable, then universal quantifier X is read as for all X, for each X, for every X. You can use any one of it. You can use any of it for as an universal quantifier, okay, for the variable X. Let us take an example. All men drink coffee. So here all is something, okay, which should be taken into account. When you take a fact into account, you should also always identify the keyword, whether it is all, whether it is every, okay, or whether it is some, or whether it is an individual person. That is something which you should keep in mind. So when all men drink coffee, it should be an universal quantifier, right? So X1 drinks coffee, X2 drinks, X3 drinks, and go on, and Xn drinks milk, where X1, X2, X3, X4, X5 up to Xn all come under the universe of discourse called as men, right? So in shorthand notation, we can write it as universal quantifier X, man of X, implies drink of X comma coffee. That is, we can simply read it as for all X, X is a man who drinks coffee. Simple. We can call it as for all X, X is a man who drinks coffee. This is an universal quantifier. The next one is an existential quantifier. So it expresses that the statement within its scope is true for at least one instance or something. For at least one instance of something, for at least, not the point, for at least. It is denoted by a logical operator which is resembles an inverted E. Okay. In existential quantifier, we always use and symbol or a conjunction symbol. You can call it either way. Better, you can easily call it as an and symbol. Let us take an example here. If X is a variable, then how do we represent the existential qualifier? It will be represented as there exists a X for some X, for at least one X. So this is how we represent an existential quantifier. Keep in mind, it resembles an inverted E, and we always use and or a conjunction symbol in an existential quantifier. Let us take an example. Let us take a statement here. Some boys are intelligent. This is the fact given here. Note the point. In the previous universal quantifier, we had all, but here we have some. Some boys are intelligent. So X1 is intelligent, or X2, or X3, and it goes on and on and on. So here the universe of discourse again should be boys, because X1, X2 up to Xn are boys, right? So when we write it in shorthand, we can represent it as boys of X and intelligent of X. So which will be read as existential quantifier X colon boys of X and intelligent of X will be read as there are some X where X is a boy who is intelligent. Whenever you have this inverted E symbol, then it is an existential quantifier. And whenever you have the key term some, okay, or a particular person or a particular object is notified, then we should always go for an existential quantifier. Right? Let us take out a few examples so that we have a clear idea about the different types of quantifiers. All birds fly. Here the predicate is fly of bird. The predicate is fly and bird is the object or the term. Okay. So when it comes all, it should be naturally a universal quantifier. For all x, bird of x instantiates to fly of x. Every man respects its parent. Again, it should be an universal quantifier. So for all, man of x respects x comma parent, where x is a man. Some boys play cricket, then it should be a existential quantifier, because it here it comes as some, right? Some boys play cricket. It is an existential quantifier. So for some boys of x play x comma cricket. Not all students like both mathematics and science. Not all students. Okay, not all students. So this will come under an universal quantifier. For all x, first you should, because not all students means, okay, first you have to go for the negation of an universal quantifier. So negation of all x, for every x. Student of x, like is the predicate here, x comma mathematics are the terms, and like of x comma science are the terms. Similarly, you can also represent only one student failed in mathematics using the predicate function here, using the predicate logic given here. That's all about dependent type programming paradigm. Thank you.